Hi. Today, or at least in this little episode, I'd like to share with you one of the drawing tools that I've made for myself. It helps me quite a bit. If it helps you, so much the better. I will, by way of example, in using this, discuss utility and difference curves. So I note that what we really want to do with any sort of diagram is explain, or at least show what some concepts really contain and why they may be important. In this case, we're talking about utility, and typically we take that to be related to or some function of the good quantity of goods that we have. Okay, so it could be many types of goods, and what we're interested in is how well off or how one internalizes their own well-being. Two properties that we want to have are that the margin utility is positive. So the increase of any good will increase your utility. So that's called margin utility, shortened to MU. And sometimes you'd have a subscript Y to say margin utility of Y to identify the good. But the margin utility always has to be greater than 0. So that's one of our primary things that we want to show. And the second thing we want to show is that as we get more and more units of a good, the addition to utility, that's margin utility, while positive, is decreasing. So we want to show diminishing margin utility. Those are the two things that become very important when trying to think about how people make choices, because they have to satisfy these sort of basic underlying principles of preferences. So how do we go about explaining this in a diagram? Well, first I'm going to, on a diagram, I need some axes, and the tools that I have over here are just a bunch of lines. Each one is an item that I've taken from the drawing page and just put out there. So I have some straight lines, I have some lines with arrows on them, and I have some curved lines. This is actually a U shape, I think. And these are some curved lines. This isn't the entire repertoire of what you need, but you can probably play with them and get most of what you want. For our purposes, I'm going to take this line, because I want to draw some axes. So I select that, Control C to copy, and go to the next page, which I call a difference. And put that down here. There we go. Now, I can easily move it. Note that when you have the cursor turns to the crossed arrows, that means you've got the object, and you can play around with it. So I can make a vertical line if I want, such as this. Okay. Now, the other thing I can do, if I go Control V, the last thing I copy comes up, and I can copy this down to here. And goodness gracious, I have a pair of axes. Now, I really have to understand the model here. Utility is derived from the quantities that you have. So what we're really saying is that the driving variable here is the quantity of a good. So I'm going to look at quantity of X. Now, once again, if you click here, you're not going to copy the box. If you click on a part of the box with the crossed arrow showing Control C, you've got the box, bring it over and copy it down, Control V. So I've got quantity of good Y in here. Well, I thought I would take it next, but what the heck. Now, the other thing I can do, instead of going back, I don't have to go back and get a new thing. What I'm going to do is, instead of just quantity of Y, I'm going to stick in a U. There. Make it a bit bigger maybe, drag it closer over, and to make that bigger, go up and, if you like, whatever. There you go. So I've got the concept now. The quantity of X is sort of driving utility level. Okay. Now, to make it positive, it has to be sloping up, so it's going to go that direction. Diminishing means I've got to level off the level of utility I get, so it's going to somehow start coming down like this. So let's go back and find out what we can do. Well, do I have a positive slope? Oops, do I have a positive slope curve there? That's negative, negative, negative. Okay, well, let's just take one of these. Take that one, Control C, and slap it on Control V, and that's turned around, so it looks positive. Bingo, Bob's your uncle. Let's move that up a bit. I'm going to take this end and I'm going to move it to there. And there how you like that? Bingo. Looks okay. What do we have? We have utility, which is increasing with quantity increasing here, so it's all positively sloped. Okay, that's margin utility is positive. Okay, we have that property. Diminishing margin utility means that level of utility decreases as I move along. So let's start at this line, go to that line, and we get up to there. Okay, but next time we take 1 unit, we don't go quite so far, and next time even a little bit less, and a little bit less. So you can see you're sort of approaching an asymptote up there. It's still positive slope, but the basic feature that we pull out of this is this sort of slope. No, it's not a straight line. In a straight line, let's put a straight line down. If I had a straight line, then I'd be saying something different. Let's put it there for comparison purposes. Suppose you thought utility function looked like this. That says with every unit increase in X and Y, I'd get exactly the same increase throughout in the level of utility that I have. Now one could imagine anything. Suppose I flip the utility curve around so that instead of sloping this way, it slopes like this. Okay, then you have an increasing margin utility. So here you have constant margin utility, decreasing margin utility, and in the third case you could draw like this, you'd have increasing margin utility. So the rationale for looking, of course, at this sort of utility function is that it seems to accord quite well with the types of decisions we make and the preferences that would characterize individuals on a broader sense. Okay, so we've got a utility function down. Now one of the reasons for doing this is because it's this characteristic, diminishing margin utility, which helps us figure out answers to the next question. And the next question is going to be, well, suppose you had a certain level of utility. You have some quantity of two goods. Then you want to ask, well, how could I change those quantities in order to be no worse off? That is, to keep your level of utility constant. And of course, the word indifference curve comes from the idea that I'd be indifferent to any consumption bundle along those curves. The trick now, though, is what does that look like? What is that relationship?